So we're going to look at research in health and social care, and we're looking at the last learning outcome, which is learning outcome 4. So today it's going to be able to analyze the data gathered and interpret findings of a research project. So you're just looking at all the data that you've researched and how you're putting it down to paper now.
Yeah.
So 4.1 is analyze the data and present findings. 4.2, relate research findings to their original literature review. And then 4.3, formulate recommendations related to the chosen research topic area. Now, you'll probably see a lot of the things that we've gone over in the last 2 sessions anyway here, because they do sort of seem to follow the same trend. So you're probably very familiar with what we're going to do now anyway.
Yeah.
And it's here. So for 4.1, analyze the data and present findings. Just got a couple of slides on this, and I've just put down what you need to just make sure that you put in. So make sure you include the topic
Yeah.
you're writing out, what your research question is, have a section for aims, and then another section for objectives. Have a literature review, so where you're actually physically just writing out what you found. Conceptual framework, if that is irrelevant to you. So say, what sort of factors do you think could go into your research area? So if you're particularly researching a particular, say, a disease or a virus or an issue or a particular condition, what are the factors that can contribute towards it?
Yeah.
Put in a hypothesis, so that will include your findings and your judgments. So this section will just cover 4.4, and then include your references wherever you got your information from.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this section, all it is that when you're including all of these items in this order, you're actually analyzing the data within your literature review. You're actually presenting your findings in this particular way. So that will cover 4.1. And then again, when you're analyzing the data, just think about trying to add in a section or a paragraph about this. So what are the potential uses for what you found in your practice? Can what you've found be applied to your work setting? Can you adapt it? Do you need to conduct more research? Do you think you need to do more conclusions from the data you've had? So what did you find? Tell me about the pros and cons. Was it easy to find information, or was it very hard to find information?
Yeah.
What sort of effort went into this particular thing? What your judgment is? And then again, do you disagree or disagree? This is your research data. It's only going to be seen between me, you, and most likely the IQA,
Yeah.
which is another member of staff. So it's only put down your judgments, put down what you think. It'll only be seen by the 3 of us. So go from there.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to put down what you really think, in other words.
No problem.
So that's 4.1. So we're going on to 4.2 now. That is relate research findings to their original literature review. So you've looked originally at some research on the internet, or you've looked at books or magazines. You've gone out, you've had a look. Now, then you've presented your own data. You've changed it, you've tweaked it, you've put it down as a research finding now. But now, what the information that you've come across from different sources, relate it to the original source where you originally got most of your details from. See how does it relate to the original source. Interpret your findings. See whether or not what you find out confirms what you found out in that first research area where you went and did your research from. Does it agree with it? Does it not agree with it? Has things improved? Have you found more updated information? So just interpret your findings. So on this, you might find really good pieces of information. You might find pieces of information that make no sense whatsoever. So it's nice to include a couple of sentences saying that it was a very easy research to do, or it was very difficult because I have to sift through a lot of fake information or a lot of information that really didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then again, for quantitative studies, organize the interpretations of your findings. So get a section on it. So just put down interpretation of findings and then see what your findings were against what your question is, and then go from there.
Yeah.
So overall, review the original research literature, see how it relates to what you've done so far. So you're going to do this by reading. You're going to summarize the information that was published originally, where you've got your information from. It might be one article, it might be 5. So just see the one that you've really gone with more than the others. So you don't need to do it against all 5 or 6 sources that you've done.
Yeah.
So are there any strengths or weaknesses? So is there any thing that you can find that is really beneficial to you within your workplace, or is there something that you think like this is just silly, this doesn't make sense or not? So you can even find things that are maybe not even significant fluff within the research sometimes, just to bulk it out. So you can always say that this research piece, it had a few points that were relevant, but the rest of it was just bulked out. It was misinformation, or it didn't really make any sense to the research at all.
Right.
And then again, interpret your results. So you've done your proposal, you've collected all your data, you've found everything you need to do. Just look at it, read back at it, and then just interpret what you found. So put down in your own words, in a sort of conclusion, what you found, how it was, how long it took you, and what sort of information there was available.
Yeah.
And then 4.3, formulate recommendations related to the chosen research topic. So now that you've got all of your research, you've got every single thing that you actually need to do. You've collected your data, you've popped it down onto a piece of paper, you've typed it out, you've added images and tables and graphs. So you've compared it to your original literature review. You've got to think about this now.
Yeah.
So can you think of any extra questions that need to be asked? So at the end, you can put down, I've researched this particular research question here. Now, if I was going to do this in the future, I might ask this, this, and that. So you can put down a couple of research questions that you might think of for the future. You can probably even change the command verb. Instead of do evaluate, you might want to analyze it.
Yeah.
And then again, can you think of any recommendations from your actual research project? Would you recommend that this particular processes or procedures that you find be used within your workplace, or what would you recommend?
Right.
And then finally, this is the last section for this slides. You can also discuss any actions that future researchers might want to do. So it's not necessarily what you will do, because we're not asking you to take on another project after this. It's something that you might, if you ever want to revisit in a couple of years or in a few months, or for another unit, if you were to go on to the level 6, there's a research project there as well. If you were to revisit, what sort of changes would you make?
Yeah.
You'd want to identify any weaknesses or gaps in the research you find, and that's a good area to go off. Say, I didn't have enough information about this particular thing. Maybe this is what I want to find out, or conduct physical research, primary research on myself in the future.
Yeah. So in that kind of bit, you could put in about seeking information from district nurses and things like that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And then you can also put down that I do this by doing face-to-face interviews, focus groups, and just tell us how you do it.
Yeah.
And then you would say, if this future research that you might want to do, will there be any benefits to your organisation? If there's none, then you say, there's probably no point in you even carrying it out. If there will be, then you write down potentially these might be the future implications if we were to carry this out.
Yeah.
And that's it. So just quite nice and simple.
Mm-hmm.
This last section is just telling you what sort of layout what sort of recommendation you should put in. Just what sort of little bits and bobs you need to add into your project.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for this section?
No, that one's relatively easy as well.
Oh, this right. So